So we're all aware with Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, who is a respected member of the bar in Kenya.
I'd really like to see how this conversation goes to its logical conclusion. Does it mean we shouldn't ban Ahmed Nasir, but we can ban people who, because they have a big microphone, remove that microphone because we think we know what people should hear?
I feel like it's very logical for the Supreme Court to do that.
What is 3 times 5?
It depends. Math is
Are
racist.
you kidding
No,
me?
to be honest, math
Are you kidding me?
Math is
Are you
racist
kidding
nowadays.
me? Peana mic.
No, Murechi.
It depends. Are you kidding me?
We live in a very fluid society, Murechi.
This is the quality of this panel. Welcome to Two Mics. My name is Kelvin Moretti. So today we're going to discuss freedom of speech. In the panel, I'm joined in by a very interesting group of individuals. On my right, I have a lawyer. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Juno Kao. The views that are expressed on this session and on this podcast are personally mine and do not represent those of the organizations I work with or any that I have an affiliation to.
So you have a lawyer. And then we have Titus Magwa.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Titus Marco. The views expressed in this podcast are solely mine.
My name is Charles. I really don't care about these views that everybody's talking about. But if you feel offended, just feel free to switch off the podcast. There are lots of other podcasts out there.
Please, our dear listeners.
Okay.
Our dear listeners that we love you so much. Please don't go away. It's on a light note. Recently we saw Ahmed Nasir. Maybe June, you could take us through that situation. What happened?
So we're all aware with Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, who is a respected member of the bar in Kenya and practices as a lawyer and an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He was recently, this is a few weeks later, but then the Supreme Court made a decision and gave a directive that precludes him and does not allow him or his firm or any associates he has to practice before the Supreme Court. And this follows several comments, articles, tweets that he'd made in the public realm criticizing and attacking, quote unquote, but countering the power, freedom, and jurisdiction of the Supreme Court on different platforms.
So obviously they cancelled him, right? It's cancel culture. What do you think is the implication of that? Maybe take us through, is that legal? What's the legality of that? And what do you think is the implication of that on maybe something like freedom of speech?
Well, so there's different layers of it, right? So first, as a law firm and as a practicing lawyer, what you sell to your clients, especially if you're in the practice of litigation, is that you have access to different courts and different fora, including the Supreme Court, right? So as a senior counsel, that means he and his firm, which I guess is one of his means of livelihoods, are disrupted. That's number one. Secondly, there's larger issues when it comes to the practice of the law, which include and involve debarring certain advocates or certain people, whereas they've undergone the required training, spent their times. There's larger questions there. Who can address the court? Ideally, that should be any lawyer and any advocate who's duly admitted to the bar. So the third issue, which is what we'll delve into further, is the human rights to freedom of speech, but then also freedom of expression as we recognize it in Kenya, which is the ideal absolute discretion to say anything you want to anyone in any forum. In Kenya, that is restricted and limited through certain criteria that we can delve into further, but then those are the issues that we have. Should you be able to criticize a court or any forum that you have access to, and what would that look like?
Okay, before we proceed, I feel like we should separate Ahmed Nasir and Supreme Court from this entire conversation of freedom of speech, because I feel like with this situation with the Supreme Court and this guy, politics comes into play. Well, the principle is there, but I feel like it's a little bit more complex. Because I feel like in this case, Ahmed Nasir, of course, I feel like it's very logical for the Supreme Court to do that, because you cannot tear us apart, as an institution, and then appear before us expecting us to give like a proper judgment. Like, the legalities of that, I'm not a lawyer, but I know that doesn't make any sense to you. But
my question would be
however they did, I mean, it's up to them, but freedom of speech there, I feel like, yeah.
First of all, whenever I have differing opinions Mureti. He's going to come in and say, "Oh, Charles, you're racist. You're the dumbest person." However, I'd like to give a disclaimer. Tito, we agree on Tito on so many things except this one. I don't think it should matter. I think, as has been said, this is someone that I think Admin Nasir has other advocates working for him, right? And now, even they can't get the opportunity to stand before the court based on what he has said. This is taking away the bag from people who are not even this is like saying in the future, any person who, if an advocate is looking for work, he shouldn't work with certain kinds of people because of the political views they hold or however they express themselves. And that is not the precedent anybody wants to set. Anybody should be able to express themselves. This presents a situation where we have to ask ourselves, just because I am this person, should I suppress my opinions about this thing? And I think the answer to that is no, because what you end up with is a lot of political correctness, a lot of just funny behaviors that you really don't want to see in society.
That shows he does not respect me.
So that is why I go different ways with Tito, although he's someone I really respect a lot compare. Yeah. No, to be honest, let me give something. Let me just say something. This conversation it's doing a lot of gymnastics in my head, because we are talking about free speech here, and I know in a previous podcast I was roasted for being an Elon Musk fan, and I know this is one guy who's doing so much for free speech and at the same time gets banned, gets cancelled everywhere all the time. So I'd really like to see how this conversation goes to its logical conclusion. Does it mean we shouldn't ban Admin Nasir, but we can ban people who like Tucker Carlson because they say things we don't agree with, but because they have a big microphone and we think they are misleading other people, so we should remove that microphone because we think we know what people should hear, even if they're legitimate people who listen to Tucker Carlson, the same way they're legitimate people who listen to Don Lemon or these other people. You see, the thing here is who determines what is inappropriate speech? Is it if it's God, I would give that a pass. I would say God knows everything and he can say that. But if it's human beings who have bias, you could be leaning towards Ruto or Raila, and so based on your own thinking and however you came to your own conclusions, you think my opinions is improper speech and so I should be banned. I don't agree. I actually think speech will be allowed across the board. If you don't want to listen to Alex Jones, shut that TV off. If you don't want to listen to Joe Biden tell you that GM is the leading EV manufacturer in the world, just shut the TV off. Go listen to someone you want to listen to. But if it's good for the goose, should be good for the goose.
I have a problem with the court's decision. This issue of Ahmed Nasir. It's tyranny. You are a public office, but you're not, for some reason, you do not want to be subjected to scrutiny. Anybody who goes against what you're saying is an enemy of the court. You saying that you're banning someone for criticizing you, then that means you only want people who agree with you, people who agree with what you're doing, people who do not dissent with your decisions to appear before you. And that to me is what aristocracy exactly is.
So how do the courts work? Is there a presumption that lawyers should have, not just lawyers, but everybody should have, some kind of respect towards the court? What's the nature of that respect? What's the nature of that relationship?
Absolutely, and that even goes beyond just the general public. So as advocates, one of the things we're trained is duties of because we're considered officers of the court. So there's certain things that you have to do towards the court. There's a respect that we have between the profession and between the bar and the bench. So that does exist there. Yeah, so that's the nature of that relationship.
What then would happen in the event where an officer of the court has absolutely no confidence in the court and has been public about that? Does the court not have any option to have an opinion on such an officer of the court?
So ideally, there shouldn't be an issue. You can go on and say whatever you want. I think the issue in this specific case was just how repetitive it was over and over and over again, and it was constant scathing remarks. But then also there was an issue around them getting very personalized attacks. So that's where I think the line was drawn, and they just felt like, oh, maybe this is too much. But even then, I think something important to note is even in our constitution, when we consider what the freedom of expression is and it covers, it says that in exercise of the right to freedom of expression, every person shall respect the right and reputation of others. So that was also in question for this situation, because there was a lot of corruption, allegations, and so on and so forth.
Does a constitution allow me to insult someone? So there's a difference between insulting and defaming, right? So the constitution or the law, I think, it discourages me, or strongly discourages me from defaming someone based on the consequences of defamation. But it's okay with me insulting someone, right?
That's true, yeah. You mean the way you defame and insult Charles?
No, I do not defame Charles. No. So then, in that case, then it is within his right, his constitutional and human right, to insult the court. So, and where is that divide between his freedom of speech, which is protected by the law, and the sensibilities of the people on the bench, which have been affected? Because I feel like it's an issue of their sensibilities being affected. And is there defamation there?
Yeah, and I think from what Juna said, going by the fact that those remarks were public and repetitive, it was only right for the court to take action, especially since this was one of their officers. So that was just an in-house.
I was keeping.
So I think it's only right. And I say that because I understand we have a very mature democracy. We have a very sober judiciary, recognized even internationally. So I am fully behind the Supreme Court. However, there was one point that you mentioned that maybe the people working under Ahmed Nasir are also now not allowed. Yeah, by association.
Do you think you could be thinking this way because of maybe a political maybe mindset that you have that is preventing you from being very objective about this?
No, you presume to know my political affiliations. But so my perspective about this is very unbiased. Actually, it's just the previous conversation we are having and the conversation we're having right now is about freedom of speech, freedom of whatever. The fact of the matter is, you cannot have a situation where everyone is allowed to say whatever they want without any boundaries. And at the same time, you can also not have a situation where people are not allowed to express themselves. It's a very tricky balance. It's also in the same way where you cannot have a fully capitalist economy and you cannot have a fully command economy. Like, that's how systems work. You have to marry. You have to marry these things.
One has to take precedence. You can't say that.
Yes,
who makes the decision?
And the
who makes the
precedence,
decision? Who's the one who's
and the precedence is that every individual has the freedom of speech, freedom to express themselves, but within a larger dome, within a larger.
So what's that larger
boundaries?
What's that larger boundary?
That larger boundaries is your relationship with others. I know, and that's why I'm going all out, because I need to be corrected.
You have freedom of speech, but your speech also, if it has consequences, that's your own fault. Yes, you can say anything about Charles. He can insult Charles all he wants, but if Charles gets up and beats him, that's his freedom of speech was maintained, but he got beaten up. So that's assault from Charles. But
and that's exactly what I'm saying, because in that case, the larger system, which is Moretti, will come to correct him in that case.
Yeah, but
you're going to balance.
Just something I wanted to say, just on top of this, I think maybe the thing is, like she mentioned before, in the context of certain, let's say, institutions. For instance, everyone here starts the podcast with saying these views are my own, my own, they're not associated with the company I work for, because the company also has its own like identity and what it believes in. So if you're a representative as a servant of the court or an officer of the court, there are certain things I know that if I'm working within as the officer within that jurisdiction as the officer of the court, there's certain things I can't say. So if I was just alone out there, say whatever you want to say. But if you're representing us as the court, then you can't say certain things.
I get what you're saying. There are consequences, and there are actions, and there are consequences to those actions. But the whole point of a constitution is to guide. The whole point of a constitution is to help us, I want to say, behave in a certain way within the jurisdiction of that constitution. First of all, there's something Tito said that shocked me. That the absolute infallible belief in our court system, in our current judiciary.
I did not use those words.
No, that was implied. But the thing is, Ahmed Nasir's point is where we should see a separation of the executive, for example, and the judiciary. We don't seem to see that come to life very strongly. Yeah, and ideally, there should be that difference that
I
comes.
feel like, Morit, you're digressing and you're going into the contents of what he was saying.
No.
We are discussing merely his freedom of speech.
But I'm just saying. So my point is, I'm trying to talk about the officerness of Ahmed Nasir as an officer of the court. I'm trying to say that as an officer of the court, when you see there is a problem, and with good authority or with good judgment, that indeed there is a problem, even though you are an officer of that court.
So in that case, my question is, are there not proper channels? Because as far as I understand, it was on Twitter. Is Twitter the official channel? Maybe June, you can confirm to us. Is that the official channel?
Of course not.
Okay,
Of course
thank you.
Yes. So I get that, Tito. But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, me as a Kenyan, if there are things, and June can confirm or deny, there are certain things in the Constitution of Kenya that are, I would say, infallible and immutable. That if you want to make any changes on them, we need a referendum, right? One of them is human rights. The structure of government is another one. If they want to add the number of counties that we have, they want to reduce them, that has to go through. The structure of government, that has to, and a few others. I don't know which others there are. But my point is this: the freedom of speech is such a, and that's why I love Kenya, because that's some of these things that we quit President Zakayo, and you are alive continuously, and we're always coming up with names. And you don't calm down. So look, all I'm saying is this: we live in a country where we're able to say, and we should be able to point out issues that are affecting our system, whether it's executive, whether it's a judiciary. It's like saying now, because I don't agree with the judiciary now, June smashes my car to a tree, I shouldn't take her to court. No, the only redress I have for my issues is the court. But then that doesn't mean that I shouldn't disagree with that court when it does things that I, as a citizen, not now as an officer, but I, as a citizen of this country, that I shouldn't now go and disagree with the court. I have that right in the Constitution that if I disagree with this institution, I should go and say, no, this is not right. And now if you tell me, now you're affecting me, you're affecting my livelihood, and you're affecting the livelihood of people working under me, because I disagreed with you, that is incredibly, it's insane, honestly.
No, but Morit, you have already established that the man, as far as we know, did not make any official.
How do you know he did not make any official complaints? Tito,
that's what I'm saying. As far as we
know, do not say these things you cannot verify or deny. So let's talk about things that are in the public domain.
So I'm not sure, but I suspect there might have been complaints made to the Judicial Service Commission. I'm not sure of the status of those, but then that would be the right forum to bring those up. But in terms of appeal mechanisms, now what they're trying to do, because the Supreme Court is the highest court of the land. What they're now trying to do is to take it up to the East African Court of Justice, which some say is a toothless dog. But yeah, because now it comes back to the local jurisdictions for implementation of the court orders or the decisions they make. But still, that option exists, and that appellate mechanism is there.
Do you think this is going to be a permanent solution? Let's say, do you think there'll be a softening of this decision in the future during Come's time, or maybe the next CJ will come and say, Come didn't do well here and we will reverse this?
What do you mean by softening?
Softening, say, we made this decision, we don't think it was the best decision.
Oh, it's too extreme.
Yeah, it's too extreme and you need to... Do you think Come will one day regret this? Or do you think the next CJ will come and say, what Come did was not right?
Yeah.
We are not going to allow this kind of thing to happen.
Thank you for holding the mic. Please keep it there. I think it depends, because then Chief Justices are very unique and subjective. So this would never happen during Mutunga's time, for example, right? Just because of his background and strong beliefs in human rights, or at least that's the perception I have, versus with this current regime. So it's a question of time will tell. The ultimate answer will be how we deal with the situation now.
So now, globally speaking, allow me to be the devil's advocate for censorship of some sort when it comes to freedom of speech. An example is when it comes to diplomacy, for example, it's a very delicate dance, right? So Biden might hold certain opinions about Macron, for example, and he probably says them when they're discussing with Kamala in the White House. But then when it comes to public, you have to be cordial. You have to say the good things, right? Because it can mean war sometimes. So assume I listen in, or I get to stumble on this. There is a certain responsibility, and I'm choosing my words very carefully. There's a certain responsibility that comes with disseminating information and practicing your freedom of speech in this kind of an example, for example. So my point is, are there certain things that might affect government policy, certain things that might affect the workings of the societal structure from a governance point of view, that we need maybe to control, so that maybe, remember how our society works is a socialized kind of a system, right? How the society works, we have created systems that work in a certain way. And for the programmers and tech guys on the panel know that how system work, if you're creating a system, it's lines of code, that this fits into this, and finally the whole thing works. So if we have something that might affect the flow, we have a problem in the entire system structure. So my question is, if some things that we can say can affect governance, can affect the system of the society that it works in, is there certain do we have some leeway in controlling that to make sure that we are working as a society?
Let me finish. By censoring people, what you're actually telling them, what you're actually saying is, there is this group of chosen people who are superior human beings in their thinking and in their grasp of certain matters. So much so that we really don't want you guys to be thinking about these things. We will do the thinking on your behalf.
So much for someone who supports Elon Musk unilaterally making decisions that affect the world.
You see, the thing with Elon Musk, he is the person who has unbanned every single person that was banned in Twitter 1.0. I just said, if you don't like what he's doing at Twitter, there's Facebook, there's Truth Social, there's Telegram, there are all these places you can use. But at the end of the day, I really think that people who advocate for censorship are indirectly telling us, you guys can think, but we don't trust your thinking. We'll do that thinking for you, and we'll tell you what is good for you and what is not good for you. We are the people who can safeguard your thinking. And I think that's what we do to children, because we don't expose children to harmful content like pornography and all these things. Now you're doing this for adults, but even what's more insulting is that you're not preventing things like porn. You are preventing common sense things like a man and a woman are like this and that. And if you say otherwise, there are two genders. If you say otherwise, you are removed from Twitter 1.0. Such a common sense issue, yet it's very controversial nowadays. And that is what I don't agree with.
Let's assume, how many legs does a cow have?
It depends on who you ask. If you ask a biologist, they'll tell you if you ask a cultist, they might say, I like my cows with 3 legs.
No.
And so that's how all my cows are.
No. Okay. I see your
If you ask
point.
an Indian, they'll say we don't talk about cows, we worship them.
Charles.
So even talking about 4 legs is a taboo.
So no, that's obviously not true. But
No,
the
I'm just
point
giving-
is,
I'm giving-
no. Fine,
it's
fair
a-
enough.
it's a-
What is 3 times 5?
It depends. Math is
Are you
racist.
kidding
No,
me?
to be honest,
Are you kidding me?
Math is
Are you
racist
kidding
nowadays.
me? Okay,
No, Moretti, you
let
see-
me ask the only mathematician.
Let me,
Mike.
no, Moretti.
Mr. Titus.
Moretti, let me explain
Mr.
to you.
Titus.
Let me explain to you what it is.
It depends.
How
Are
I
you
arrived at
kidding
this.
me?
Because you see, we
This is
live
the
in
quality of this panel.
We live in a very fluid society, Moretti. White people invented math, and to the disadvantage of black people. And so
become
now,
a racism issue.
and so now math is racist. 3 times 5. How do you assume it gets to 15? How did you get at 15, Moretti?
No.
That's based on a white person's
It's
thinking.
Peana Mike actually.
Yeah.
Give the mic.
Moretti, your problem here is you're trying to reinforce your ideas on us.
So
I think we need to censor this guy.
so now, Titus Magua, you're the only mathematician who does this as a profession. What is 3 times 5?
It's 15.
It's 15. It's because if you're being paid 5k per month, in 3 months you'll have
15.
it's 15k. Sindio?
Assuming
It's
you
not a
don't
racism
spend.
issue.
Assuming you don't spend.
Can you calm down with the inflation? So the issue becomes, it's not a racism issue, as one of our smartest people on the panel would have you believe. It is an issue of facts. So now here comes some gentleman with a weird beard saying on Twitter or whichever platform where your children are on, yesterday mwalimu amemwambia 3 times 5 ni 15, and then there's a weird guy who believes that 3 times 5 is racist, for example, and it's not 15. The government is stealing the numbers.
Can be anything.
You know. So now tell me, do you honestly, genuinely believe that all ideas need to be platformed?
Society is what it is because of facts, science. If I could reduce it to truth, of which maths and science is a consequence of that. That's what society is. That's the society we know right now has been built up on that. And maths is a very fundamental. Maths is divine. Maths, you don't joke around with maths like that.
We need a t-shirt.
Yeah, we get that. So where I'm going with this is that for someone who thinks like that, I mean,
He's not a very sharp guy.
I'm not attacking you, but for anyone that
You're
thinks,
attacking his intelligence,
for,
right?
for anyone that tries to undo the atomic and subatomic nature of society as we know it, there is absolutely no place for them.
Yeah.
And for their views, for that matter.
Are you getting
Well,
my
maybe
point?
for them, we're going to respect their individual right and sovereignty, but
As in,
their
don't
level
kill
of
them, we
madness should not be allowed. And that's why we have institutions, by the way. That's why we have institutions. I absolutely say yes.
They should be deplatformed, right?
Because, Charles, let me ask you a question. Because this is not an issue of views. This is not an issue of I think, I feel. These are facts. This is science. These are things
Measurable issues.
So, of course, we should. What should happen is, of course, you should have. There should be some space to give you audience, but soon enough, you're going to see it's nonsense, and we will immediately deplatform you.
What I was saying previously, don't take me seriously. It was a lot of satire. I agree with what Tito said. Yeah, I think those situations should be treated as insanity and people who really need help. But I don't think, just the same way I don't think it's right to deplatform people who have differing opinions, I don't think we should also deplatform people like that.
But there's a difference between
actually
opinion
think-
and facts.
Yeah, you see,
Opinion,
the thing
I
is,
agree, but
Marty,
facts.
I always actually, and you'll call me an Elon Musk cultist, but this is actually what he also says. Don't deplatform any side of the debate. If someone thinks that gender is fluid, just hold the facts up against them. Have a debate. There's this YouTube channel that has Oxford debates where you see, and the interesting thing about that YouTube channel, and I think it's owned by Oxford. The interesting thing about that is that was very commonplace in the olden times. You didn't have to have an institution like Oxford doing that. Nowadays, you don't have. It's called a town hall. Nowadays, you don't have a lot of that happening. It's just that we are right, you are wrong. And the sad thing about all this is that we don't even disagree on controversial opinions. We're actually disagreeing on mainstream, like common sense opinions. But I don't think just the same way, and this is one thing I actually think you should like about Elon Musk, is that when he has an opportunity to deplatform all these other guys who are saying all these crazy things, he's actually not doing that. This is not, the previous Twitter we knew would deplatform you for like very, very crazy things, very, very crazy things. And that is not right at all. This is, again, I think this is what has radicalized me to really not care about people's opinions, because if I disagree with you or you disagree with me, what you should just do is, let's sit down, convince me otherwise. And if you think, if you convince me more than what I believe, probably means you're right and I should change my opinions. And if I'm able to do that, I should also be able to convince you. People should be knowledgeable about whatever they're talking about.
You're right.
Just to not come and say you're a racist, you're a bigot, or all this. Just don't say those things. Just come and explain, to have a civil debate.
Just building up on that, what you were saying, I agree with you. Maybe it's something I said before about deplatforming. Maybe someone thinks like that, and I think I want to take that back slightly. And where I'm coming from is how society works is it's made up of a bunch of individuals who each individual is thinking their own way, and there's something very unique about every individual, that we can tell nonsense from something that makes sense at a very fundamental level. So for someone who is taking that kind of views which are very much against the atomic nature of society and everything, the collective society will see that and treat them accordingly. Actually, you don't even have to take any active decision as to let's deplatform this person, which I think is the tragedy of our times. It's not something we should be doing. But think about the flat earthers. They are now looked down upon because it's common science that the earth is round.
So just to answer Charles, all I was saying is, let's not deplatform opinions where we are having discourse on, for example, politics, right? We're having discussion on what gender is, for example. But when it comes to things that are factual, things that are measurable, things that we genuinely, objectively have understood to be harmful, we've measured and you've seen that smoking alcohol is bad for your lungs. No, okay, not smoking alcohol. Smoking cigarettes, for example, is harmful to your lungs. Platforming a dissenting opinion on the same level, as an example, but tunaiweka at the same level, tunasema no, there's a different argument on this, is genuinely dangerous for society.
COVID. I mean, so Joe Rogan, right? He just signed a new deal with Spotify and has been making millions, right? He has a huge following, and it's exactly what you're saying in terms of what are really the facts around COVID. Do we go to the CDC and trust the CDC as a true source of science and opinion and authoritative versus COVID deniers, you know? So then opinion and facts gets blurred. I think the thing for me and where I draw the line is it goes back to checks and balances, right? There are things that to you and I might seem as fact, but then to others might seem to be opinions. The question is twofold for me, or the solution, which is number one, fact checking, right? How do we counter that with facts, which is what Charles was alluding to. If we don't agree and align on the same opinions, let's have a sit down, convince me otherwise, right? Secondly, the way they do it in the US at least, or one of the things that they say a lot is the solution to information is more information, right? So in case there's a disparity or disagreement or delineation of different opinions, then share more information, convince the other person, be respectful of their opinions and their sides. Don't give one-worded bottom line opinions, but then seek to understand and empathize with the other side and try and see if you can agree and align on the same position.
We are all not equal in society, in the sense that we are all not at the same level. What I know right now, there's someone who is in school, they are aged 10 years, and it's going to take them the next 10 years to have the kind of maybe understanding, for example, like I have, or maybe you have, to expose both of us equally to wrong ideas you're missing that person.
Yeah, and also now the question also becomes about what is the point of experts. For example, when it comes to issues of law, you cannot platform my opinions with Jones, however much we want to have dissenting opinions. When it comes to issues of actuarial science, I cannot come and argue with you. Yes, I might have some opinions. I could try. Or when it comes to blockchain, what else does my grandmother can learn that and be good at it within a few months. But my point is, what's the space for expert then in this paradigm where everybody can say what they want?
But the point of expertise is it needs to be challenged so that it can.
No. But I get that. But then the thing is, I know how to make Tesla cars, for example, electric vehicles, and then you are a teacher. You know V is equals to IR. So now
you do understand there is
difference
in maybe even intelligence or knowledge in specific things. The same way you're saying Titus is a good actuary, he might not know something else, maybe blockchain.
No. We are speaking now because now she said the issue like of COVID, and I know COVID was a bit politically. There was a lot of political influence, unfortunately. But now I'm saying, where is the space for experts? Because in some issues, in some issues, Charles, Kabingo, you'll see that kuna watu wakona. There are people who have an opinion, and then the people have and I'm saying facts in very big quotes.
But this is the whole point. If we give that freedom of speech, yes, there'll be weird and outlandish ideas that will come out. But through that's when there'll be actually good ideas that will emerge. The whole point is not that we're trying to control like certain individuals. We just give that freedom so that ideas can crop up.
What good can I contribute to the actuarial field right now? Honestly,
never know. You never know.
What can I contribute to the actuarial field?
I'll give an example.
Or to rocket science.
No, remember.
What sort of opinion should I have?
I'm trying to give you an example. Remember, like what Steve Jobs did. Just him going in uni and going into a design class and saying, okay, design is something very important to giving people that interactivity with this thing we're trying to make. Because back then the computers were very analog.
Kabingo talk about dissenting opinions.
But no, again, I'm trying to show you just because someone is not within your field, and because sometimes there's maybe even in blockchain, there's a way Charles and everyone who does blockchain thinks about blockchain. But if I come in, it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily the smartest guy in the world, but I might see something because I don't think the same way you guys are thinking. And I'm not saying it's everyone. It doesn't mean that brilliance only lies in the people who actually did blockchain. There's someone who's brilliant, he'll see something and come and ask Charles, but they see, we can do this and this. Is this applicable? Then Charles is the one with his expertise to come and say, oh no, this can't work or this can work, or that's a good idea.
So all I'm asking is this, when it comes to actuarial models, and I want to use because that's the only thing that I would say that's very technical. When it comes to something like as specific as that, or as medicine, something like medicine, I cannot come and tell a doctor, that's not how you operate on hearts.
Yeah, there are many people who have made innovations in medicines who are not doctors.
But you see, they had experience in. There's an issue of
if that is true, those are outliers. Not the norm.
Yes.
But you're seeing my point is that's why we give people freedom of.
So now the question,
if it's the speech or anything, it's people are able to try out things even if I'm not in Titus's field. I might not know anything about those models. I might try to understand it. I might not know. There's someone who will go and look into it and kind of understand it and maybe find an innovation in it. I'm just saying we should not lock out people.
I'm not saying we lock, but I'm saying there are certain things in which we need to be very careful. Just opening the door to just anybody, to just anybody having an opinion, especially now with the advent of social media, where anybody can have anything, they can post any nonsense they're thinking about, and that is why we usually have these quack doctors coming up. We have these people giving very strange opinions about fitness and because we've allowed anybody with a mouth to open.
This is the point. your question was, where does
Expert.
the expert lies? It's in now either calling out if someone comes with something that's work.
Is calling
call that out.
Does calling out involve the platforming now? If I call you out and I tell you that is nonsense, am I allowed to make sure that whatever content you're putting out to be deplatformed?
This is the let's say in a field like medicine. It's if this thing is not beneficial, there are laws that will govern that this thing cannot be. That's why we have the FDA and all that, because things have to be tested before they're given out to the masses. There are always checks and balances. So it's not locking out someone. We'll just say. I know there's also this whole issue about politics, and there's a lot of things that go into even medicine and all that. But the idea is, if like Akina Joe Rogan were doing, if you feel like you want to do anything with yourself, I don't know, this is also part of freedom of speech, but it's just the freedom. If you want to take horse tranquilizers and be healed, you can do it.
First of all, this is similar to the convention of one person having too much power and not thinking about the consequence of that statement. Because once you start deplatforming someone based on one reason, you can extrapolate that, and this is actually what happened to Twitter 1.0. You start deplatforming someone based on an idea, just one idea, and then you suddenly have this power that you can actually exercise it in so many other ways until you get to a point where nobody, like a lot of people are now doing things they shouldn't be doing. So it usually starts as an innocent idea. We are going to deplatform people who say one thing that is not right, and then someone is like, we didn't know we can do this, and then someone else does it. You get to a point where you are censoring a whole group of people because they have this idea that does not sit well with these other people. And especially when you have a group of people who all of them think in the same way, and for them this other group of people, their thinking is foreign to them. So now you start deplatforming them. But the other issue I wanted to also bring up is I think over the past couple of years, what we've come to see is that actually the people who mislead us the most are the experts. The experts are the ones who lie to us over and over again. So COVID, for example, we were told how many shots? Yeah. So there was, you remember the Hunter Biden laptop story, right? The one that 51 intelligence officials came and said, this is Russian disinformation. Came out 2 weeks before the election, and then later it was confirmed by New York Times. This was actually not Russian disinformation. This is actually true. The thing is, it was later found out that 17% of Americans would have changed their decisions if 51 intelligence officials didn't come out and say, this is Russian disinformation. So here you have a case where experts are clearly the ones misleading us. And I actually think during this time that this time where we're living, a lot of manipulation actually happens on the masses. The fact that you can suppress this news and force this news on people, and it could clearly change. Like Moretti, I don't know, you guys, I actually read CNN and Fox News every single day, at least every single day. On one hand, this newspaper talks about how Russia and Ukraine, it's going nowhere, and actually they don't even talk about it so much. They're talking about how the strategy needs to change. On the other hand, you have CNN always talking about how Russia is losing lives every single day in Russia, even despite the fact that they're making no gains every single day and so much money is being spent. And you can imagine how many millions of people read these articles, and when they come out of it, they actually tell you that the world is like this, clearly being misinformed or anything. I think there's a place we've reached as a society where it's actually the people who are experts who are actually lying to us because they're trying to achieve a certain outcome when they've successfully misled the whole lot of people.
I feel like you've mentioned, and even as we finish, because time imeenda sana. So I think what you've said, I think this is the last point I think we should finish. You said experts are misleading us. What you've mentioned is just a few bad apples, but I had him mention experts in 3 fields. I've not had him mention any experts in aviation. I've not had him mention any expert in dentistry or in gynecology.
There's such a thing as examples.
I've not had him mention expert in his own field. So when you talk about expert, my point is this: we're talking about people who know things in certain fields. So you saying that recently we are seeing an upsurge, or it's equivalent to saying now flying is now the most unsafe mode of transport because you've had the three airplane crashing. That is not objectively true. The reality is this: expert help us run our. I'll go to an optician and you'll atanipima niambie Kelvin, this is the correct lens for you, and I'll trust him. He's not misled me. But now you pointing out 3 bad apples I think experts are misleading.
Someone needs to protect me from
therefore now we should listen to Joe Rogan, who has no experience in any.
I need to be protected by
Moretti.
From Moretti.
Please stop interrupting me.
No, you interrupted me. I need to interrupt you, guys. I think Moretti here, you're seriously misrepresenting me again. I've actually said. Yeah,
I'm not
Moretti, I actually said the times we live in, experts are some of the people who mislead us the most. I didn't say all experts are misleading us, and I gave you examples because you asked me for examples.
Cars are getting accident does not mean
Moretti.
You cannot now start saying
Moretti,
you took
how many? You took 5 booster shots.
Moretti,
you took 5 booster shots and later came and told me I wish I took none of them.
Charles, 5 booster shots. You're seriously lying?
Yeah, I'm not lying. Moretti,
5 booster shots.
Here's the thing, Moretti. I've given you 2 examples and I've shown you. Moretti, just hold up.
But you don't
Moretti, hold on.
Expert
Moretti. Umsa alichukua
booster
shot. Umsa aliniambia chalo hautaenda uchakwenu bila booster shot.
But now,
Moretti, hold up.
Why are you lying?
No.
You're supposed to be a Christian and a model.
You see, here's the thing.
Charles.
Moretti, I've given you.
No.
Moretti,
let me tell you.
Guys, Moretti, I've given you 2 examples and I've told you of the consequence they had. All those shots you took, Moretti, people are... And it's not just the shots, Moretti. I've told you how 17% of Americans would have voted otherwise. And that's a huge consequence, Moretti, when you think about it. You're talking about something that literally changed the election outcome.
But
it doesn't matter. Moretti, don't say that I've said all experts. The whole point for this podcast was, should we do censorship? And my point here is that, yes, let experts say what we want to say. And if anybody else wants to say whatever they want to say, because you remember, when that story came out, that story was so suppressed, and guys were told that is fake news they're spreading. And
Sister,
it eventually came to be discovered.
And then you choose me as your lawyer. I hope you get sued.
It's fine. It's fine.
And actually,
what I'm simply saying, you see, Moretti, for you things are binary. It's either this or that. If I'm saying things about experts, that all experts are bad.
No, it's not what he's saying.
No, Moretti, I think Evelyn.
Yeah. No. My point is,
Moretti.
Of course, all I'm saying is this: you cannot just come and tell us.
Moretti, just by making noise.
Every opinion matters in every issue.
I think just let people express themselves.
If I need a doctor, I'll go to a doctor. I'll not go to a go to a teacher. If I need a lawyer to help me.
Point me, you have the right to do whatever you want, even if you want to take your car to the doctor.
Yes,
if you can fix it, but yeah, it's fine. Again, that's the whole point. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Anyway, we need to finish this.
I think.
Did you have something to say?
Yeah. So I think this is a very interesting issue, and I don't think it's possible I don't think any of you guys are being true when you just take one side and ride with it. Because yes, we definitely have to trust the experts. That's a fact. I'm with you 100%. Or at least we must give them their due respect, because they spend a lot of time studying that profession, investing a lot of time. So there's that. But at the same time, I think what we've been seeing with all these questions is the institutions that produce these experts are corrupted. So some of the people who are coming out as the experts are not really experts. And that is what has caused all this. Yeah, that's it. Kabingo, I want to disagree with you a lot on that point you're insisting on the outliers. I feel it doesn't make a lot of sense. A point where maybe Moretti can all of a sudden come and contribute to the actuarial field successfully.
No, I was saying, yes. If someone brings up an idea, it's the Indian guy who did the guy. There's a whole movie about him. There's the Indian guy who went to Oxford. He came from a rural village somewhere. Those guys were not giving him, but he came and defended it. And then that's even I can't remember what exactly he did. I don't know exactly, but it was very crucial to maybe how we look at the zero. I can't remember. I'll look for them. What's the guy is called? But you see, there are instances like that where, yes, you might be trained in actuary, and maybe there's someone in a remote village who got an actuary book one day, went through some things, and maybe, yeah. But I'm saying, if for instance, if let's say he comes to an actuary like Titus, and then they tell him, ulisoma tu kitabu nini, you don't have the proper qualification, so we want to listen to you.
So Kabingu, what you are particularly not maybe for is this whole institutions thing. With that I'm with you 100%. You might not be an actuary, but you've gone through the material. It makes sense.
Yeah.
You're smart, of course.
My point is, but you're not in society. No one will consider you an expert. Like no one will, because you need.
You know, Ngogo Thiongo has never done a master's in his life, but is a professor based on his body of work. So my point is, the system, by system, even the society, gives flowers to the people who gain expertise. Even outside
but see,
of
this is the point.
And these are flowers you're giving.
But see, exactly what you're saying is, you need. So this is the thing. You need to have there'll always be outliers who will come to either I'm a writer, and then at some point people recognize this person is actually a really good writer. So the point is, experts, you again back to your what you said before, experts, your job should be to vet everything and then say this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. There's always brilliance in people out here, and if they can show it and an expert sees this makes sense, then that also should be adopted.
Yeah. Anyway, so in the interest of time, I think it's important that we close this. We have really enjoyed discussing the freedom of speech, and clearly there was a lot of freedom of speech in the panel today. Everybody had an opinion to say something. We hope you had fun listening. We hope to have you next time. So thank you so much for joining in. We hope you enjoyed the episode. See you in the next episode. Bye.